We're here now at Brand Theaters watching The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I loved and hated it all at the same time. The movie was really good. It had good action. It had very rich lore, like a universe that's like, I want to explore this, like a sandbox game. You're like, that mountain over there, I'm gonna go over there and see what's on there. Everything this movie showed you is like, I want to know more about this, or I want to know more about that, or what the hell is that monster thing coming at me? I want to know more of this because it's like, I feel this thing had a huge deck of cards to play with, and it only played with just a couple of them. The movie felt rushed. I understand it is a series of books, graphic novels, etc. So perhaps maybe I should go read those to fill in some of those blanks. But for me watching this, when A, B, and C happen, I'm kind of like, that feels a bit rushed. Maybe if there was a little more slow time in between, kind of digest it all, maybe kind of be like, okay, I care about this, I don't understand that. I don't know. This should have been a TV series. They could have broken this up, really flushed out characters, flushed out locations, flushed out the gunslinger and the man in black. Because honestly, that whole concept of they're powerful but not powerful, they're supernatural, like that whole thing, loved it. That whole entire thing with them two at it was super enjoyable. The only problem was, like I said, rushed. Very, very rushed.
So in preparation for this movie, I read just one of the graphic novels. I read the prequel graphic novel that I guess happens before the Stephen King books. When I finished it, I realized it was the only graphic novel that wasn't actually a Stephen King book. But I kind of got a little bit of information about the base story going in, but it had nothing ruined for me, which was nice. Reading that, I became very interested because the gunslinger character to me is a really neat concept. Plus, watching the trailers, I felt that Idris Elba, although very different than the version in the graphic novel I read, was an amazing imagining of the gunslinger, and I really wanted to see more of him after seeing him in the trailer. With that being said, the other side of the coin, which would be Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black, I really didn't think he was a good fit until I saw the movie. In the trailer, I'm like, I really don't like this guy. He's really annoying and kind of grates on me. Matthew McConaughey, that is. But when I watched the movie and learned more about the character, I feel he was actually a really good choice. He has that sarcastic unlikability as a person, in my opinion, and it translated really well into the character that also holds those concepts. He is very much an unlikable person, very much demanding, the Man in Black, and honestly, he's pretty BA as a bad guy. The two of them are established throughout the movie as just being completely badasses. I have to say that both characters I enjoyed quite a bit.
So when it comes to cinema versions of stories done on paper, there isn't a writer that has more on screen than Stephen King when it comes to television shows, when it comes to movies, when it comes to made-for-TV series, all of the different things that we've seen from him, and some of them are some of the greatest things that have ever been put to film. And in a lot of cases, it translates really great to the screen. Just to kind of start off as far as The Dark Tower is concerned, this is one of his most beloved series. It's one of his earlier works, kind of starting, way back into his writing career. People still love it to this day. It's something that's very talked about, when it comes to online presence and just having that characters that you can kind of dive into and really enjoy and see through a lens with. This movie has some really enjoyable moments. It tells a story that, has, some issues with adaptation, the way that I saw it portrayed. As somebody who really enjoys Stephen King's work, I felt like there were a couple moments where emotions in some of the story were stepped on in order to move to the next action piece. And that sometimes kind of hampers a movie like this. When things like that happen, it is upsetting to me. But like I said, overall, the action scenes in this movie were great. The gunslinging portions and some of the magic that they use are, very exciting to watch. It's, definitely more magical and mystical than something like your John Wicks or, your legitimate action films. This more has some elements of action built into more of a fantasy realm.
So, okay, the movie's an hour and a half, which is why it's really short. The movie should have just gone for the epic scale of 2 hours and 45 minutes. I would have been thoroughly pleased and pacified on that. I really do hope I was told the movie's supposed to spawn other movies and I guess a TV show, and that's, I think, what it needs. With something this rich in lore and everything else in between, I want to see more of that. That's one thing I hate about movies is when they show you things and then they never go back to it ever again. So it's like, what was the point of that? I get it, you're establishing something. I mean, you could have done, if this was a series, you could have done like an episode on the entire Dark Tower itself and its whole ins and outs.
I read a lot about the production of this movie, and let me tell you, I don't think I've ever read about a rockier production than this movie. They hired a director. I guess they've been trying to make the movie for like 15, 20 years or something crazy. And they had hired multiple directors, and they had multiple screenwriters and multiple scripts. And then finally they get one that gets greenlit. They hired a director. The director had won an Academy Award, the gentleman that did this. They brought him on, but he was kind of green, like he hadn't really done a lot of movies. And he kind of got in over his depth from all the stuff I was reading and was trying to keep up with kind of the high demand of this film. They kept going back and forth with the studio. They would have test screenings. It would do really poorly, like really poorly. They'd re-edit the entire movie. They were talking about replacing the director. And finally, they just brought one of the producers, Ron Howard, of course, one of the greatest directors, in to help him finish the movie. I was really worried going into this movie because of that knowledge that it was going to be really bad because they were hand over fist trying to fix it over and over again with reshoots and re-edits and just tearing the whole thing apart and putting it back together again. And then they didn't release it to critics until like the day before or the day of or something crazy. That just screams this movie is going to be horrible and we want to hide it. It wasn't the case at all. While I felt that an hour and a half wasn't really enough time, and I want to see some of the stuff they cut out, because watching the movie you can see scenes that were definitely longer originally, that I want to see what that was supposed to be showing, and more of the world around them, and more of the path between the beginning where they're establishing the basic concepts to the climax at the end. It was like you blinked and you were at the end and there's giant things happening. I wanted to see more of a build-up. I wanted to feel like I was going on a longer journey, like it was more meaty. With that being said, though, I did really enjoy the movie. I can't help but feel that it could have been better, but, you know, it's hard to judge a movie by it could have been better if the movie was still enjoyable.
Like I said, it's a great combination. It works really well on the screen as far as the visual style, as far as making worlds that feel lived in and characters that you want to see more of, especially with Idris Elba as your gunslinger and Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black. They have really entertaining back and forth throughout the movie, and it's something, like I said, that every time you see them on the screen together, there's a tension. That tension is something, like I said, that can carry a movie like this. You know, like I said, I have some gripes as far as some of the dialogue, and, you know, specifically in some moments with Matthew McConaughey, some things feel a little hammy, a little over the top, but there are other moments where he just knocks it out of the park. I see takes of Russ Cole from True Detective in some of this, and it's kind of like that mysterious, but like there's a part inside you that just, you know, knows that there's nothing that you can like about this person.
I would give it an 8 out of 10. Definitely there's some things in there element-wise with hero-villain I did like. The whole location thing, the whole idea of there's like worlds on top of worlds kind of thing. I like that. That is really good, really cool, and enjoyable. It just felt rushed. And I wanted to care more about what I was seeing. I felt I should have had different reactions and emotions to things happening than when they did. But that's just me.
I definitely didn't get bored during the movie. Immersion was never broken. I enjoyed the ending and how they ended it, and everything they tried to sell me, I bought. So that's really good. I mean, that's a win in my book. So despite a rocky production, I think they pulled it off. And I want to see the TV show they're doing. I want to see the movies they're doing after this. I want to see more, especially with Idris Elba as the gunslinger. I know he probably won't be in the television show, but I want to see more movies with him because he was just amazing. I like non-traditional hero types, and that character definitely fits that mold. He was really cool. If you're kind of a little interested in seeing it, I suggest seeing it just for his character. It's worth the price of admission. I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. It was really well done. The only thing that loses the point is that I feel like I got kind of cheated on some of the story that was originally there that they removed, and I hope they release an extended version onto Blu-ray later on so that I can see some of the stuff that was cut and kind of get some of the story elements removed. I really enjoyed this movie. I'm probably going to watch it again because I have a feeling there's all kinds of little stuff that you can catch if you watch it again, like Easter eggs and stuff like that. And I definitely am going to dive in and start reading the graphic novels because this is a really cool story and a really cool world, and I just want to know more about it.
Overall, like I said, the acting was very, very well done. I feel like the characters were ones that you could really get behind. The world felt lived in. The action was great. The story could have used a little bit more. Like I said, as far as some of the more emotional scenes, they don't elicit those same emotions when you kind of brush over them rather than allowing them to kind of have their place in the sun. Overall, I would say this movie is a 7 out of 10. Very enjoyable to watch. Like I said, there are some issues, but I definitely, if they do end up expanding this out into some form of a universe, I will continue to watch. I hope they'll find ways to improve and maybe add a little bit of runtime just to make sure that we get everything that we deserve as far as this adaptation is concerned.
Question for you this week. What is your favorite Stephen King adaptation from his books to movies? There's a ton of them. I've seen some of them, not all of them. I've read a couple of his books, not all of them. So shoot that down there. Really curious to know. There's a ton out there. Go on ahead and like this video and favorite it. Hit that subscribe button. When you do that, you get more movie reviews like this, plus our throwbacks, other shenanigans we do on the daily and weekly. And remember, guys, you heard it here at The Source.